And Sister Gayatri is not new to this audience. She has covered with us previously two topics, two values, and she is a representative of the Brahma Kumaris since 1980 at the United Nations in New York, where she is serving. Her area of service is New York. Immensely a serviceable soul, very humble, down to earth. Always I have felt that. And also, she's serving as the vice chair to the International Day of Yoga Committee at the United Nations. You know, the International Day of Yoga is held on 21st June every year. She's written quite a few books and also has received quite a few awards. So today, a few lines for her first. Sister Gayatri is known for her invaluable pearls of wisdom, and listening to them indeed, we get rid of our boredom. As sparkling stars, we can then achieve our divine stardom and lead a life worry-free, carefree, and full of mental freedom. Finally, because I have to reach my destination of the perfect world in the divine kingdom. So from wisdom to kingdom, that's her journey. And a last few lines on perfection. So today she shall share tips on how to be perfect in dealing with others, how to remain away from any effect, so that I can be a diamond without any defect. Finally, working on my intellect to be away from the affect. Affect is the emotional component, and actually there's nothing called imperfect. It simply means I am perfect. Right, so with this I will now pass it on to Sister Gayatri. Thank you so much for joining once again. Over to you.
Oh, Shanti, thank you, Manoj Bhai. And that information you shared on the summary was extremely interesting for me, because I'm following on what Brij Mohan Bhai said, and of course from the discussions that ensued after he shared. So once again, it's lovely to be with all of you. I'm sitting here in New York, and we have not such a good weather, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the internet isn't affected, talking about effect and effect, by the weather. And so it's lovely to be with you and to share with you some of my churnings on this very interesting term called perfection. So because I'm one of those people who feel that every word has a definition, and from the definition comes a meaning, I thought of finding out how the world sees perfection. And to my dismay, the world doesn't see perfection in a very good light. But the dictionary says that perfect, what is the meaning of perfect? It means having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics. It means the best possible state. It means being without fault or flaws. Now, if that's the meaning that the world has given to perfection, if we look around our world today, what we see is that nothing surrounding us is perfect. We look at our products that we create, we look at the relationships that we have, we look at the state of human beings, we look at our machines, all have their flaws and their faults. So we're advised, and Brother Brij Mohan used the term, we're advised that before we start chasing perfection or going in pursuit of perfection, we may want to consider if perfection is something that even exists in the real world, or if perfection is just a construct that lives solely in our minds. Is perfection an imagination of human ingenuity? We are further warned that the idea of something being perfect is an illusion. So for the world, perfection is Maya, it's an illusion. we need to examine within this illusion that perfection can really hold us back from achievements in life. So if we aspire to perfection, it will hold us back from the achievements that we want. And we could find ourselves always waiting to reach perfection and never really be happy in our lives. Now, these are all very interesting concepts, aren't they, of how people see perfection in the world. And so the world gives us the advice to strive for excellence, but not to chase or be in pursuit of perfection. Now, it was also interesting to look, because I was so struck by this, I became interested to see what is the distinction that the world is making, that people in the world are making between perfection and excellence, because they're saying, don't go in pursuit of perfection or chase after perfection, but aspire to excellence. So I wanted to know, what was this distinction between perfection and excellence? And what they say is that, for instance, and it's very simple, perfection is being right. Excellence is a willingness to be wrong. Perfection drives fear of failure. Excellence tells us that we can take a risk. Perfection creates anger and frustration. Excellence is powerful. Perfection is a form of control. Excellence is fluidity, flexibility, spontaneous. Perfection is being judgmental. Excellence is being accepting. Perfection is always taking for oneself. Excellence is always giving to others. Perfection is doubt. Excellence is confidence. Perfection is pressure. Excellence is natural. Perfection is an outcome or a destination. Excellence is a journey. Now, I contemplated on what the majority seems to think of perfection in the world, and I realize that what the world has done is that they have placed perfection in a physical, material paradigm. And when something is placed within a physical or a material paradigm, of course, all the above, they would negate that word with all of the things they said about perfection that I just shared with you. And so it became a convenience to replace the word perfection with the word excellence, and to negate perfection in preference of excellence. So being on a spiritual path myself and being particularly focused on the study of Raj Yoga, I realize that within the construct of Raj Yoga, perfection is actually a spiritual phenomenon. And so this spiritual phenomenon of perfection cannot be found in terms of understanding and experience in today's secular world, especially when it's put within the frame of a material and a physical paradigm. But then there are wise people who also look at perfection in a very different way. One such person is Socrates. Now, Socrates believed that happiness was to be found in what is called perfection of the soul. That is, making one's soul, in layman's term, to be as good as possible, to emerge the goodness, the latent goodness from within the soul. So all other ends which human beings desire are of no value in themselves. All these pursuits that we go after, they have no value in themselves when it's connected to perfection. Because if they were worth pursuing at all these different pursuits, they were only as a means to discover the perfection of the soul. Now that's an interesting thing. All the the aspirations of excellence in the pursuit of life that we are having, fundamentally, spiritually, Socrates is saying that it was to rediscover the perfection that lies within the soul. So for me, perfection as a spiritual is a spiritual phenomenon. And that's how I would like to look at it today. Perfection in the world was also given a symbol. And so the world has given this symbol of perfection as the circle. So the circle is a universal symbol with extensive meaning. So it's a symbol of perfection. So what's the meaning this circle gives to perfection? It represents the notion of totality. It represents the notion of wholeness. It represents the notion of that which is original as an original perfection. It recognizes infinity. It recognizes eternity. It recognizes timelessness. It recognizes that everything is cyclical in movement. So perfect time is cyclical. It recognizes God. And so for me, within this, what is perfection within this realm of a spiritual phenomenon? To me, it will be the 3 points, the 3 circles, which would be God as the supreme point of living light. It would be souls as points, living points of light. And it would be the cyclical movement of time. And when these 3 come together, maybe in concentric circles, they equal perfection. And so for me, I want to say that the world, in a way, has defined perfection, but refuses to look at perfection. Socrates talked about it in terms of a rediscovering of the perfection of the human soul, and all pursuits would lead us back to that. And the circle, it's a symbol of perfection, of the dance, I suppose, of creation that brings us back to that perfection, or self-sovereignty, as we call it. So I want us to look at some aspects of perfection before we elaborate on it as a spiritual phenomenon. Some of the aspects of perfection would be aspiring to perfection. So when we are living in this world, of course, there's one thing in which you're aspiring to excellence, but you could also aspire to perfection. And so to aspire to perfection is an admirable thing to have. So when we come on a spiritual path, we aspire to perfection, but we are not naive to think that perfection is just going to happen like that. But we know that perfection has a process that involves trial and error. So even though aspiring to perfection, we are looking for the best in ourselves, we also know that it requires from us to be realistic and to be patient. So for me, that would be a soul aspiring to perfection. The other is reaching for perfection. Now, this for me is the core. Reaching for perfection is a core. And that is, perfection is achieved through experience. The yardstick to measure perfection is experience. Experience is the learning curve that I embark on in this discovery of perfection. And it is through this learning curve of experience that I learn the treasures within. I learn how to return to that perfection that's innate inside of me. The other aspect is aiming for perfection. Now, perfection is never a starting point. in any endeavor, and particularly within a spiritual endeavor. We never start off, no one starts off with perfection. But what we start off with is a potential within us that inspires perfection in us. So we say we use 2% of our potential, and that makes us aspire to excellence. But the other 95% of our 98% of our potential is what is inspiring the perfection within us. Perfection is working with our potential to tell us, look, you know, you can be perfect here. So to realize our potential requires us to start from who we are in the now, and to start from where we are in the now. So it is an aim, perfection is an aim, but the potential that is being inspired is telling us, start with your 2% and build up to your 100%. So I feel that, you know, it's the aim that we have. And, you know, the famous story of Arjuna. What did Arjuna see? He didn't see everything in the secular world, but he just saw the eye of the bird that he had to shoot. So his perfection was aiming for that. So the aim is very important. And then the other is playing with perfection. You know, all the things that they said about perfection, being fearful, being doubtful, being judgmental, being all of these things. Well, it's because they take perfection too seriously. Whereas life, perfection is about life. The laws of life are supposed to be perfect laws. The laws of nature are supposed to be perfect laws.
A lei da natureza.
So if I'm looking at perfection, let me look at it also a little bit like Brother Bridgman had said, with a little bit of humor, and I'm calling it playfulness. So in our world of instant fortunes and instant communication and instant gratification, it is still true that anything of true and lasting value would take time and effort. So getting to perfection requires us to follow a less than perfect road. The world is less than perfect. The road is rough and bumpy. But within this less than perfect road, we are having to make the effort and to build the experience to take us to that perfection. So playing with perfection would mean being light, being easy, and having fun along the way. So perfection is possible. Perfection is not an accident. Actually, what is perfection? Perfection is the catalyst to transform our lives. Because what we learn when we look at this whole construct of soul consciousness is that perfection is possible for every one of us, no matter what age, no matter what color, no matter what nationality, no matter what gender, no matter what religion, no matter what level of education. Perfection is possible. It is a catalyst that can transform our consciousness of life, our consciousness of living, our consciousness of relationships, our consciousness of our world. So I wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit on those 4 things I spoke about above, aspiring to perfection. So as a catalyst, perfection as a catalyst, when we aspire to perfection, what are we aspiring to? We're aspiring to return to our authentic self, to our true self. And in so doing, we have to realize who we are. We have to awaken the unconscious patterns and return and reconnect to that spiritual wisdom of understanding and realizing the truth about who we are. If I do that, then I'm able to touch the perfection within me. It is by being myself, aspiring to return to my authentic self, that would open up me to the possibility of an inner perfection. So I'll have to choose. Perfection will say to me, okay, choose. Choose to be your authentic self. Choose to be the authentic you. Why would I do that? Because everybody else, as they say in the world, has been taken. So I can't want to be anyone else. They've all been taken. I can only be me. And so when I choose that, to return to my authentic self, I begin to walk this road to perfection. And I begin to not worry so much about my outer world, because I begin to see a solidity in my inner world. The road begins to become less bumpy and less rough, and I begin to walk on smoother surfaces. Perfection is returning to my authentic self. It means to bring my real self to the table. I don't have, you see, excellence carries with it some form of competition, even if I'm competing against my own self. And so when I bring my real self and not my shadowed self or my image to the table, then I'm not caught in self-appraisals. I'm not caught in how I rank myself in my own mind, or how others are ranking me in their mind. No, I choose to be my real self, and I choose to bring my real self to the table. So those are some of the real things on this field of action in the way we're living that we have to look through when we're looking at perfection in relation to our authentic selves. The other I'll touch upon, remember, I'm just giving you little strands, little threads of these 4 things in relation to how we live out, how perfection can be a catalyst to help us on this road to perfection. The other is the authority of experience. So I'm reaching for perfection. And in reaching for perfection, I am using the authority of my experience to ratify that perfection within me, to reaffirm faith in myself that, yes, it's moving me toward something that's lying within me to discover more and more of it. So perfection is a living experience that we can nurture and we can intensify only, as Baba says, or as we heard here in the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, when we stretch our wings to fly a little higher. How do we directly experience our perfection, as hidden as it is within our everyday living? That is what will motivate the authority of experience when we're reaching for perfection. So we'll focus on a few things. And I think this is the core. This is the yardstick for perfection for me. Focus on what you can get out of your experiences. Because when we only focus on being the best, the hardest worker in the company, the smartest guy on the block or girl, the funniest, the one who attracts everyone with their humor, we are in a never-ending anxious state because we're always trying to be who we're not. We're not bringing our best selves to the table, our real selves. We're always trying to be like the chameleon. We're always trying to become like others or become like the environment. So we can't feel at ease if we don't focus on our own experiences, because that unease will come from always wanting to scrutinize others, to scrutinize myself in relation to others, to worry about how others are seeing me, to worry about what I have to do if I need to keep up with others. And so I need to go back and focus on my own true experiences. The other focus I would suggest in reaching for perfection in terms of experiences is to focus your attention less on what you're doing. In other words, perfection isn't about being caught in a divide of right and wrong, but focus more on what you want to feel, what you want to gain from the experience. For example, the next time you take on an event at work or a project at work, rather than focus on logistics to start with, focus on the experience you want to come away with from that endeavor that you're taking on. For example, you may start at a relational level, connecting with others, drawing the specialty out of others, making them feel special when they offer their specialty to the project or to the event, learning something new, enjoying new and interesting insights. These are all at the experiential level, and these are all roadblocks to perfection. The other is aiming for perfection. And I think this aiming is about alignment. And so I wouldn't use the word balance, because when you use balance, it's amounts. But I would use the word integrating. So finding the integration points between doing and being. Because most of us, when we're looking at perfection, we get caught in the universe of doing. I have to do something well and perfect. And in getting caught in the universe or the world of doing, I become more preoccupied with survival instincts, with survival traits. But both doing and being are equally important. So finding the fine integration between the two would allow me to tap into the core of my being, that spiritual core of being that cultivates and generates the strength that would help me to fulfill my goals. So it's not just about the doing, but it's about where is the cultivation and the generative force of that which will give me the strength to fulfill the doing that would accomplish my goals. Because the meaning of life lies in our purpose. And so for perfection, I think the starting point would be, depending on what we're aiming for, because it's the aim, what really matters to me? What really matters to me? What is it I want to perfect in this life? And that answer, I think, will ignite the fire of moving toward the perfection. And then the fourth is the accomplishment, and that is playing with perfection. And so I'll just give you a couple of points on this, and that is our perception of perfection is very important, because our perceptions of perfection sometimes remove us from the sense of play. It becomes too serious. It becomes too all-consuming. It traps us in a vacuum of nothingness. So to discover perfection, we need to learn to play all over again, to play throughout the day with our activities, to play while working on our projects, on the chores. And this will not only improve our performance, it will not only make us appreciate the outcome, in a very respectful way, in a very beautiful way, but it will boost our curiosity, our creativity, our imagination, and it will keep filling us with life-giving, they call it energy, vital energy. Because, and here's a key, we tend to live a lot in our minds. And we forget that bigger than our minds is our soul. We are whole beings. We are souls. We're not just the mind. And so sometimes perfection is hijacked by the mind alone. And the mind is very addicted to the senses. So I have to understand myself as a whole being and understand that the soul nurtures and calms the mind, and the soul refocuses us on the purpose. So I have to understand that in order to play more. So I'm not afraid anymore of moving toward something that I hold of high esteem within me. Because when I think of perfection, I'm afraid. It's as though fears just show their monstrous heads, and I'm not able to demonstrate a commitment to discovering what my perfection is, because the fears kind of eat up my commitment. And the other one is staying away, playing the game of life is particularly within relationships with others. And so perfection is to stay away from the game of judgment and evaluation, particularly in my relationships. And so this would also involve my ability to not suppress my feelings, but also perfect my relationship with my feelings. And so I'll end now by saying to you that perfection as a spiritual phenomenon is an emergence. It is an aim that if I have the right aim and objective, perfection will emerge and show itself to me. Because perfection emerges from a process of purification. The more the soul becomes pure, the more its perfect and complete states of being are seen by the soul. Emergence of perfection is seeing into being the original and eternal states of the soul. It's seeing with the divine eye of the soul. Now, Brother Bridgemohan also mentioned this of being created in the image and likeness of God. And I'd like to share a story here that I heard once that is that I remembered because it's extremely poignant in this topic of perfection. And that is, they said that God contacted human beings. And God said to human beings, I want you to become pure. I want you to become complete. I want you to become perfect. I want you to return to your state of perfection and completion. And of course, the human beings all became curious. And God said, you know what? I'll give you the first key to returning to your perfection. And that is, you were created in the image and likeness of me. And so if there is perfection in the soul, is that you're going to have to look into the mirror of God to discover that. So again, the curiosity was even more aroused. And so then God put the human soul in front of a mirror in which God revealed his image and likeness in the mirror. And then at the two sides of the mirror, there were two blank walls. So he said, okay, I want you to look. There are two benches beneath the walls, just at the side of the walls. I want on one bench, there are all the different colors of paints and their brushes. And that wall you could use as a canvas. And on the other side, there was a lot of detergent and cleaning materials. And he says, or you could use that. And then he said, I'll come back in a couple of days to see what's going on. And then he left it to the choice of the human beings. And so one set chose to look at the mirror that was reflecting God's image and likeness and decided to paint the wall. And they started painting what they were seeing in this mirror. The other set decided to clean the wall. And when they started cleaning the wall, they started seeing something that was lying beneath the layers of paint on that wall. So when God returned and looked at it, he said, excellence is when you paint your image of perfection. Perfection is when you clean yourself and return to a reality. So the spiritual phenomenon of perfection is to understand this process that we are undertaking, because it is practice that makes perfect. So perfection emerges from purification of the sanskaras and the cleansing of the conscience. Perfection emerges from eliminating the acquired and allowing the authentic to be revealed. Perfection emerges from the true spiritual identity of being a soul and tearing off the layers of body consciousness, cleaning off those layers. Perfection emerges in the participation of the divine dance of creation, sustenance, and transformation. Perfection emerges from being in remembrance and not in forgetfulness. Perfection emerges from keeping the three aspects of time in my awareness before acting. And so I'll close with this, dear brothers and sisters, that perfection is not an accident. I don't chase after perfection. I'm not in pursuit of perfection. Perfection is a spiritual phenomenon of purification. It is a catalyst for change. Because what does Raj Yoga teach us? That life is a delightful process of going in and out of the realization of perfection. The deeper we go within, the further along we move. The more conscious we become, and the more frequent the moments of peak experiences we have. So I leave you with that, and Om Shanti.
Well, thank you so much for elucidating these beautiful differences between excellence and perfection. So a question has struck my mind and here as well. So according to you, perfection is an elimination process. Is that true? And excellence is more meaning.
No, perfection is an emergence process. It's something that emerges. Purification is the elimination, or cleansing is the elimination.
Okay, a couple of questions related to soul consciousness is, I mean, it's again a term which is used in the BK language quite a bit. It's about developing this karmatit stage. which is a stage very close to perfection. So do you want to explain us what is this karmatit stage?
Well, karmatit stage literally is a stage in which I'm doing an action, but I'm not caught in the trap of my own action. My action is liberating me from a consequence that I would have to face in the form of accountability. But karmati doesn't mean I stop doing actions totally and completely. I go beyond the action, but I go beyond the consequence of the action in the form of an accountability of settlement. For me to understand karmatit, I need to understand the law of karma, the philosophy of karma, that absolute law of karma. For me to understand the role that love and justice plays in action. Because every action carries a form of justice in it. And so I'm not exempted from the justice of the actions that I do. And so karmatit, for me to become karmatit, is for me to understand first the law of karma, action, interaction, reaction, actions that cause me, put me in bondage, actions that liberate me from bondage, but also the importance of understanding the three aspects of time in relation to action, because action is a continuum. It is connected to the past, it is connected to the present, and it is connected to the future. So it is no easy answer for me to tell you. Karmatit means this, but karmatit is a complete study that is connected to the understanding and the practice of the law of karma.
Okay, amazing. In the interest of time, I'll just take this one question which has come from a brother. It's like, if I am a perfect person all the time, I am labeled as an outcast. People don't enjoy my company because they feel, oh, he's too perfect to become our friend. So, what should I do? Should I start becoming a little bit imperfect to achieve more friends?
Well, I don't know if you listened to what I just said. You never bring perfection is not a starting point. Perfection is an aim. And for me to try to be perfect all the time, I'm living in a world of denial. I'm not bringing my real self to the table. I've painted myself. I've chosen to take the wall in which I was painting myself. So every time I come to the table with my friend, I'm bringing a painted version of what I think perfection is. But I have to bring my real self to the table, my authentic self. And that's why you start with aspiring to being authentic. Because my authentic self, even it is a drop, that reality is a drop of my perfection that emerges in the eyes of my friend, who then responds to it accordingly. So perfection is not a starting point. Perfection is not something that I strategically plan, like aspiring to excellence. It is something that emerges when I'm in touch with my authentic self and I bring my real and true self to the table with others. And I am the same on the inside and the outside. And I allow whatever is that true potential to emerge from within me. And this is why I said perfection is to live, it's a process of living in remembrance. And living in remembrance means, of course, one level is to be in connection with the Supreme Being, as we call remembrance, but never ever to forget that on this road to rediscovering my authentic self, lying within me is the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and the lovely.
Okay, so a perfect answer, I must say. Okay, so with this, I would now like to request Dr. Ashok Mehta to propose the vote of thanks. Yeah, over to Dr. Mehta. Yeah.
Thank you, Gayatri. This was a perfect lecture on being perfect. I don't think you can have anything more than this to be perfect. But what I liked something was to be authentic. I should be myself. I can't be somebody else. And that's my perfection as far as I'm concerned. Karmatic state is we all try to reach. We want to be free from the bondages of karma of various kinds, especially of many, many births that we are carrying with us. And therefore, I think what you have said is you have brought us from Socrates to Baba. And I think it's amazing the way your flow of thoughts was so fast that sometimes you get dragged into it. But something that one would like to do is how to be perfect. And that's what you said, to be authentic yourself. Thank you very much for this most beautiful, perfect lecture on perfection. I think I'll have to listen to you at least a couple of times more before I understand the depth to which you have taken us. Thank you very much. Om Shanti.
Actually, Ashok, when you will listen to it again, you will say, oh, it was so simple. It's actually very simple. I haven't shared complex concepts. It's very simple. I tried my best to make it simple, but hopefully that's how you hear it when you listen to it again.
Fine. Thank you so much, Dr. Mehta. And before we go into the closing meditation, I'll just do a few announcements quickly so that you all know what's coming, what's in store for you all in future. So moving on our journey, a beautiful festival coming up next weekend. It's the Holi. A lot of spiritual significance about this festival, and we have with us a very new speaker, Sister Sapna. She's instrumental for serving the China region of Asia, and she will be joining us. I mean, she's in India currently, I think probably from Madhuban when she joins us. So please make sure you can attend. It's on the very second day of Holi, which we say the day where people play with colors. So we'll see what colors we have to play with in a spiritual perspective. So it's on Saturday 19th March in the morning India time, and one day prior for the West Coast, US, Canada. And moving on our journey following Holi is another value of cleanliness, where Brother Ken would be touching upon again a lot of details of what sort of cleanliness are we speaking. Is it something to do with the physical or something about the mind? Because if your mind is clean, your sanskars can gel well with each other, and then you can play the Holi properly. So on the very same day after 12 hours, that is Saturday evening, let me just remind you that now that I think from 13, that is tomorrow onwards, the West, the entire West, I mean the US and Canada, the clocks are changing. It's the summer time coming, so they'll be going 1 hour ahead. So we have to adjust with them. So it will be going back to our normal times, 8 p.m. India time rather than 8:30. But we'll make sure that you'll get the pamphlets and the flyers on time. And after that, as usual, we have the workshop. This time we'll be having another new entrant, another senior sister with us, Sister Sona, who is serving the Abu Dhabi area of the UAE, the Middle East, and she'll be also joining us the next week after that on Saturday. And again, the workshop times will be same as the summer times of US and Canada. So we'll move on to our normal timings, 7:45 India time. So now we move on to 7:30, 15 minutes prior as before. And as I said sometime in the presentation of Brijmohan Bhai Sahab, that if you want to go in the depth of this virtue and experience this perfection, let's go into the silence retreat, which we always have once a month. So this time we are doing it on perfection. We'll be trying to focus on what the divine has told us about in the various spiritual versions which he's sharing with us all the time. So we'll be going in silence for 2 hours, and again the timings are slightly different. It's half an hour prior. It was 9 a.m. initially for India, so it's 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And as you can see, this is our elegant calendar which we are sharing with you all in our emails as well. So please watch for the workshop links will maybe slightly different. So we'll intimate you because the summer and the winter Zoom IDs are slightly different. And yeah, I mean, quite a few people are asking about where can we access these? Are they there on the YouTube? So yes, they will be there on the YouTube as well. But if you can just copy this down quickly, all the workshops, particularly omshanti.tk/workshops. So I think in next 24 hours you'll be able, or maybe 48 hours, you'll be able to watch all the workshops, not only perfection but even the past values which we have done so far. This is the 34th which we are doing. And you can contact us on our vihasaindia@gmail.com or even Vancouver website at ca.brahmakumaris.org, and our websites are mentioned here, vihasaindia.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. So I think I'll just stop sharing here and over to Sister Gayatri for the closing meditation. So you want me to share some soft music also in the background?
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah.
So let us sit comfortably and let's center ourselves onto the seat of the soul. And let's visualize the symbol of perfection as a circle. In the center of the circle is a point. Point of living light. The soul. I, the soul, I have the same likeness to the Father of the soul, to the Mother of the soul, when I, the soul, connect to the divine source of my supreme parent, I'm taken on a journey of returning to my authentic and true self. Which is remembered as perfection. Perfection is a spiritual journey and a destination. It ignites in me the inner potential to aspire to being self-sovereign. It opens me to the authority of elevated experiences. Perfection is like a landscape that shows me the challenges and possibilities on the journey. Perfection is to share with others through elevated thoughts, your feelings, and good wishes. Giving them a glimpse of their authentic selves. Perfection is the wisdom to transcend and to transform. In a state of tranquility. Perfection is the journey of purification and destination of divinity. As a child of God, perfect. As children of God, we are all perfect. We are born out of the lightness of God. And even though we cannot see it clearly, lying in our subconscious, our visions and memories of perfection.
So, Anu sister, over to you for the photograph if you need. Yeah, thanks.
Any closing comments from Sister Claudia? I'll call upon as I ask everybody else to open up their video. Sister Claudia, you would like to?
Thank you very much, for Gayatri Ben, to take your time and be with us. It was very nice to have you explain to us between the difference in perfection and excellence. So thank you, it was very powerful. Thank you. In the name of all of us who are here today with you.
Okay, so like every time, we want to take our picture with Sister Gayatri. So whoever has still not opened their video, kindly, we request you to open your video, start the video. Okay. 2 pictures, that's great. Thank you everyone, and thank you, Sister Gayatri. That's invaluable sharing. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.